11 Investigates has part 2 tonight of how a Sandusky County murder revealed a series of botched cases and destroyed a detective's career.
Heather Bogle's murder 10 years ago, I should say, was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back on Detective Sean O'Connell, who was set on putting 3 innocent people away for her murder.
He was exposed before he got the chance. Here's Melissa Andrews.
You wondered if Detective O'Connell was up to the challenge, but it turned out to be not only was he not up to it, something far more nefarious was going on.
I assure you that I was just doing everything.
By this time, we were suspicious of Detective O'Connell, and when we got this call, we were like, okay, we'll come talk to you. We'll come to you. At the time, I was thinking, I've never been contacted by someone who is a suspect in a murder. It's never happened.
There's so many other people.
That suspect was Keona Boer, a young mother who lived in the apartment complex in 2015 where Heather Bogle was found beaten and shot in her trunk. She said she was being harassed by Detective Sean O'Connell, who had publicly named her as a suspect.
We both thought the same thing. When we drove away, we thought the same thing, that she was being framed for murder. And we'd never encountered that.
Rather than following all potential leads, starting with those closest to Heather or running her cell phone records, Matt Westerholt says O'Connell focused on Keona Boer and 2 other men, Omar Satchel and Kyrie Jeffrey. His theory was they dealt drugs with Heather. Here's the former sheriff, Kyle Overmyer, who was later sent to prison for stealing drugs, telling WTOL 11 in 2016 that they were getting close to solving the case.
There's some really strong things that are drawing us that way.
Jeffrey told WTOL 11 he was innocent.
I volunteered to take a lie detector test, whatever it is to help the public know that I'm really not a part of this.
Continuing to pursue the 3, O'Connell ignored the fact that Jeffrey and Satchel's DNA did not match the DNA collected under Heather Bogle's fingernails.
Usually an investigation in which the DNA doesn't match gets stopped with those particular suspects right there. They're done.
They're done. They're done. Yeah, that's right.
When you look at the evidence they ended up with, the cell phone data pinpointing right to the trailer, the DNA evidence, the other woman who came forward and said, you know, take a look at Daniel Meyers.
Right.
It wouldn't have been that hard to reach
2
the
weeks.
conclusion that
2 weeks.
Daniel Meyers did it.
2 weeks there should have been an arrest. And you know, this wasn't us wanting to be right. This was us just having our suspicions that he was not a good law enforcement officer, and he wasn't.
I can assure you that I was just doing everything in my power.
Detective O'Connell's career ended in 2018 when the Ohio Attorney General's office investigated his handling of the case. He went to prison for tampering with evidence, admitting he did not hand over all of his files to the prosecutor. Here's Keona Boer at his sentencing.
3 years later, I'm still trying to get my life back. I've lost all credibility in the community. I have lost numerous jobs. I have lost everything that I have owned.
Heather's sister, Jen.
He not only failed my sister, but he failed all the citizens of Sandusky County. How he can even consider saying he tried his best to solve her case is completely beyond me.
Prior to both O'Connell and his boss, Overmyer, going to prison, there was a new sheriff in town.
The forensic evidence we took from the search warrant.
Chris Hilton campaigned in 2016 on a promise to solve Heather's case.
And then you came in and solved the Heather Bogle case within 5 months.
Yeah, we had it done in 5 months, and I call it good old-fashioned police work.
Hilton's office and the BCI cleared Boer, Satchel, and Jeffrey. They also cleared Heather's lover and family. Her cell phone records showed Heather left her job at Whirlpool at 6:17 a.m. on April 9th, 2015, and went to her coworker Danny Meyers' trailer. Meyers said he barely knew Heather, despite signing her funeral guest book and writing a heartfelt message and contributing $125 to her GoFundMe. So why would his DNA be under her fingernails?
Danny, after he killed her, did clip her fingernails for that purpose. He just didn't do it far enough.
Daniel Meyers had briefly befriended Heather. She was down because she had failed her nursing exams. He bought these nursing books, luring Heather to his home, where he promised to help pass her test. But Sheriff Hilton says Meyers quickly turned on Heather when she refused him.
So going back to the question of what this case is about, would you say it's about a man who was a sexual deviant and couldn't stand rejection?
Sexual predator who couldn't stand rejection, who, when he was rejected this time, I think he just lost. I just think he just saw red, and he's like, and then he fought with her so hard, and she fought back so hard that once he knocked her out and did all that stuff, I think he may have panicked a little bit. But I also think,
how do I get myself out of this?
But I also think he's thought about it too.
You say predator, so then that begs the question, A, were there others in the past that we just don't know about? Or B, would she have been the last?
I don't believe she would have been the last. I don't believe she was his first.
Hilton and Westerhold believe Meyers killed his child's mother, Leanne Slutter, in 2009, 6 years before he killed Heather. And so does her sister, Lorianne Haley.
He was just like, oh yeah, I found her. She killed herself.
Daniel Meyers said he found Leanne dead in her bed with a shotgun nearby.
I was here like an hour ago and she didn't answer the door. I'm like, well, maybe she was in the shower. So I went back home. Well, I had a key to get in her home, and I came in and she's dead. So I need someone to come out here ASAP.
Once again, the coroner quickly ruled Leanne's death a suicide. Daniel Meyers was never tested for gunshot residue.
I don't accept that she killed herself. It was botched.
Why you would not want to arrest a sadistic killer, I mean, I still don't understand that. So there's so much about Detective O'Connell I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand why he did anything.
They went in and took Daniel Meyers' word that this woman committed suicide, and there were a bunch of things that were not done.
Yeah, and that goes back to there was no professional in that department that could show them how a professional does things.
There it stayed. Leanne Slutter committed suicide. Until a note was found in Daniel Meyers' belongings 10 years later. A suicide note written by Leanne. Sheriff Hilton reopened the case.
They called me and asked about her handwriting. They sent me the note, and I said, no, that's not her handwriting.
Sadly, for Leanne's family, nothing changed.
I believe she didn't kill herself, but the investigation was done in such a poor, haphazard way to start that years later it was next to impossible to try to prove.
I feel bad for Heather. You know, if they would have charged Daniel in my sister's case, Heather would be alive.
Though many families are haunted by the past, living with untruths and unwritten endings, Hilton says there is a new era in Sandusky County.
They can count on professionalism. I wanted to professionalize this organization with the leadership skills, the investigative skills, the people skills that make people believe in their law enforcement. And it's taken a minute. I think we're there.
I called Detective O'Connell for this story and could not reach him. He served his time in prison, as did Sheriff Kyle Overmyer, who now works as a drug rehab counselor. The former prosecutor, Tim Braun, also pleaded guilty to assault for touching women in his office. He never spent time in jail. For 11 Investigates, I'm Melissa Andrews.
You can get even more about this case right now on WTOL 11 Plus. WTOL 11 case file shows you the sit down with Melissa, lead investigator Brian Duggar, and Sandusky Register executive editor Matt Westerhold as they discuss the bizarre circumstances of this case.